Hi everyone, Jay Adams here from Denver Water along with John Mergel from Colorado State University's Extension Office. And in this video we're going to talk about mulch. And John, really important to mulch. First, help us explain between inorganic and organic mulch.
Sure, Jay. You'll see a lot of things described as mulch, and a mulch is really just something that covers the ground. But in general, we separate them into inorganic materials, mostly rocks, and then organic materials, things like wood chips, bark, or even something like grass clippings and leaves, all count as organic mulches. All mulch is good. You want to be using mulch in your landscape, but they don't all behave exactly the same way. So it's important to understand the differences before you choose the one for your xeriscape. Let's look a little bit at some of these mulches more closely. First, I've got a product called pea gravel. This is widely available at landscape centers or as a bagged product. This is usually a 3/8 of an inch size, and you can see it's all pretty uniform. These smaller rocks, whether you use gravel or something like chipped granite, which can come in different colors and is less round, all provide the benefits of moisture retention, improved moisture infiltration into the soil, and weed suppression as long as you apply it deeply enough. And that's going to be about 4 inches. One disadvantage of inorganic mulches is that they do transfer heat to the ground, which can then re-radiate at night, contributing to urban heat island. On the flip side, that same warmth in the early spring and fall can actually increase the growing season length for your perennials. So that ground warming is a double-edged sword. Next to this pea gravel, you can see a product called squeegee. And the thing you'll notice right away is that it's much smaller than the pea gravel. And that's because squeegee is basically what gets washed out of the pea gravel when it's being prepared for sale. This means that unlike pea gravel, squeegee can come in a range of sizes. Anything like this, small gravel, to essentially a large sand. So it's important if you want to use squeegee that you go to the landscaping supplier yourself to look at the squeegee they have to verify that the size of the rocks is really what you're after, whether it's gravel or that sandier material. Beyond those rocks, you'll commonly see wood chips used as mulch in xeriscapes. We've got 3 examples here. The first is what you might call arborist's chips. This is chipped trees, where if a tree is pruned or removed, put through the mechanical chipper into these small pieces. It comes naturally colored like this, or if that light beige isn't for you, you can get it colored. Here's a darker chocolatey brown. You can see red, orange, all sorts of colors. Typically those are food dyes, so something that you don't need to be too worried about putting out in the landscape. Lastly, you can also get something called playground chips. These you'll see is also mostly wood rather than bark, and the edges are a bit rounder. It can come anywhere from a light yellow beige, as we saw in those wood chips, to this more aged product, which is more grayish. Organic mulches insulate the soil from temperature changes. So unlike those rock mulches, these organic mulches are going to be keeping the soil temperature cooler for longer into the spring, and helping those plants not wake up too early to be impacted by late spring freezes, which we know happen here all too commonly.
Okay. And we know that you may see a lot of different examples of mulch at the home improvement stores or the nurseries. So we've got a couple more examples here to talk about.
Sure, yep,
I've got
see these.
A beautiful tray here. So tell us a little bit about these.
Absolutely. So the first thing to notice is that these are also separated into both organic and inorganic mulch products. We'll start down here. This is a very common mulch. This is shredded cedar bark. Sometimes it gets called gorilla hair because of its appearance. Some advantages of this mulch is that it can weave together and mat together, which is really excellent for weed suppression. This makes great pathway mulch. But in a landscape bed, you do have to be careful because when it weaves and mats together, it can be somewhat resistant to water moving through it. And so if you have irrigation that is being applied from the top, this mulch could prevent the water from getting to your plant roots. In contrast, if you've got drip emitters or subsurface drip beneath this mulch, you know that water is staying in the ground where it belongs. Another bark product that you can see are these larger bark chips. These are more decorative than functional as mulch often because the largeness of the size really doesn't make them as effective at preventing evaporation from the soil or at preventing weeds from germinating. Moving into the inorganic mulch realm, here I have shredded tires. And at first, shredded rubber tires as a mulch seems like a great idea as a way to reuse this waste product we otherwise wouldn't know what to do with. Two concerns about tires. Number one, when they get hot, some of them can smell like rubber, so knowing what time you plan to be in your garden is important. Some of them can in fact leach chemicals that you might not want, so certainly not for the vegetable garden. And then lastly, like these organic mulches, they are ignitable, and so you want to keep these at least 5 feet away from your home or other structures, particularly if you live in the wildland-urban interface. Lastly, you will see larger rock used often in xeriscapes. Similar to these large bark chunks, these larger rocks don't confer all the same landscape advantages as those smaller mulches or wood chip mulches. They can certainly be decorative, and it's not that they do nothing, they're just not as good at weed suppression or water infiltration or water evaporation prevention as those smaller sizes. So if those are your priorities, make sure you choose a mulch product that matches those priorities rather than one that is less good at meeting them. These larger rocks, however, can be great and decorative, particularly if you're planting a large area of pea gravel. Incorporating some larger rocks can be a great idea to make it look more like a landscape and less like a gravel parking lot.
John, how deep should the mulch be?
That's a great question, and for weed suppression in particular, depth is important. Whether you're using an inorganic mulch like gravel or squeegee, or an organic mulch like wood chips, research has shown that 4 inches deep is the number you need to get to in order to prevent weeds from germinating and proliferating. Now, you'll always have some weeds showing up, but that depth will really help a lot in making your landscape easier to maintain.
I think that's a key thing. A lot of mistakes, I think people don't put the mulch deep enough, but it's really going to help keep those weeds away.
Absolutely. A shallower layer of mulch can help with some of the water stuff, but if you want the weeds away, you got to use enough mulch. Importantly, if your mulch is 4 inches deep, you don't need to put any sort of underlayment underneath it. No weed fabric is needed, no paper or cardboard. That depth of mulch in itself is enough to take care of those weeds.
All right, thank you, John. And remember, you can always get more information at denverwater.org/conserve.